Over the past 12 months, U.S. consumers have been seeing shocking price increases at grocery stores. Some staples shot up by almost 150%. Several others are still facing shortages due to the latest supply chain disruptions. But experts are warning that this is just the beginning. The real problem actually goes much deeper than supply and demand imbalances. Rising prices are likely to persist throughout the whole year and well into 2022, as the United States economy starts to feel the impacts of inflation. So, if you think things are already complicated at this point, get ready to see prices go on meteoric rises, because from now on, it's only going to get worse. As food becomes increasingly expensive, Americans are forced to spend a larger share of their income just to ensure they have the same essentials. Before the health crisis began, consumers used to spend nearly 10% of their disposable personal incomes on groceries. According to data released by USDA in 2019, Americans spent 9.5% of their income on food, divided between food at home, representing 4.9%, and food away from home, 4.6%. However, data shows that when economic divisions are considered, Americans at the very bottom of the economic food chain spent significantly more than those at the top. In 2019, low-income households spent an average of $4,400 on food, which accounts for 36% of their income, while the highest-income households spent an average of $13,987 on food, but that only represents 8% of their income. It is safe to say that those numbers are notably higher today. Economists are predicting that the percentage of disposable personal income that the average U.S. household spent on food in 2020 will near 40%, but official numbers from 2020 haven't been released yet. In any case, that would imply that for poor households, that percentage could be well over 50%, which means that millions of Americans are spending more than half of their income just to feed themselves. And now that inflation has been on an upward climb, rising food costs will likely slice an even larger share of people's budgets. A recent Bloomberg article reported that over the past 12 months, the price of corn jumped roughly 142% to $7.56 per bushel. That's the highest price seen in 8 years for the crop. Amongst the main drivers to this dramatic surge are a devastating drought in Brazil, which has decimated corn crops, and at the same time, an increased demand for grains in China is adding more pressure on global suppliers. According to Paris-based advisor Agritel, the situation is critical in Brazil. This should further strain the global balance sheet, while the U.S. will have to partly compensate for the drop in South American exports, Agritel added. Rising corn prices have also had a big impact on the number of corn-based goods, whose supply has become quite scarce in recent days, while costs remarkably soared. Additionally, new shortages of chicken, dairy products, and pork have resulted in a price increase of 10% just in March for pork chops and chicken breasts, while eggs and cheese went up by 6% last month alone. In other sectors of the economy, inflation levels may not appear as alarming to consumers just yet, but the truth is that by looking at all consumer goods as a whole, the latest inflation data in the Consumer Price Index from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates the largest month-to-month increase in almost 9 years. And of course, rising commodity prices go way beyond corn. Everything from lumber to copper is going up, and many economists are worried about the effects of inflation. Mohamed El-Arian, the chief economic advisor at Allianz and president of Queen's College, Cambridge, told in an interview with CNBC that he believes inflation is here to stay and not transitory, as the Federal Reserve claims. Just as in the grocery shelves, El Arian describes that we're seeing a similar story at the gas pump. Prices have surged over $1.20 compared to the same period in 2020, but that was when demand was dwindling because of stay-at-home mandates. Just like groceries, gas prices are trending higher and higher with each passing month, according to Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy. He foresees gas prices will stay on a continual rise as the economy reopens. On top of that, the cost for both new and used vehicles is considerably higher. That's what Scott Hall, the Executive Vice President of Operations with SwapAlease.com, has recently argued, pointing out that it's a great time to sell a car, but if you're looking to replace it with something new, be prepared to pay a lot more. Meanwhile, the costs of lumber continue to skyrocket. The shortage of the essential building material is delaying the construction of new homes, complicating renovations of existing ones, and fueling the housing price bubble in what was already a scorching market. Last week, lumber prices have pushed the price of an average new single-family home $35,000 higher. But this week, there was an increase of almost $1,000 in that figure. According to an analysis by the National Association of Home Builders, lumber is adding $35,872 to the cost of a new home, and there's no end in sight for this upward trend. Jeffrey Mezger, the CEO of KB Home, said, "While lumber prices have gone up, we have been able to pass it on to the consumer with higher prices for homes, and there's still far more demand than there is supply," he outlined. Home builders are facing enormous pressure to finish new housing units. In a recent CNN story, Tom McCarthy, a New Jersey-based real estate broker with the Chen Agency, who also owns a building company with his father, has revealed in an interview that he can't finish building a home in Bergen County, New Jersey, because of the lumber shortage. He says, "There are pieces of wood that we can't find," said McCarthy, estimating that the total cost of lumber for that home will hit $70,000. That's roughly double the cost of building the exact same home in a nearby town just 8 months ago. And home buyers are facing their own set of challenges too. Buying an existing home has become tougher as real estate prices have gotten completely out of control. Bidding wars are being registered all across the country, and people have been paying hundreds of thousands of dollars above list prices. In Northern California, a house in Berkeley sold for more than $1 million over its list price in March. Another piece of clear evidence that the housing buying frenzy is only accelerating and removing affordable homes out of buyers' reach. Local reports describe that the Berkeley home received 29 offers. It was finally sold for double its list price, and stories such as this one are becoming more common in today's real estate market, according to recent data and statements from real estate professionals. And that's particularly true in places like the East Bay. People are not surprised when a home goes $1 million over, disclosed Josh Dickinson, the founder of real estate agency Zip Code East Bay. "When my clients see a house for $1.9 million, they're almost conditioned to think it'll go over $3 million in Piedmont or North Berkeley." While he admits that buyers always tended to make offers way higher than the original asking prices in the Bay Area, during the past year, things have been far more frantic, with additional bids per home and more aggressive offers. In the East Bay, the market has been typically busy, but it's gotten much more competitive of late, according to Redfin real estate agent Ina Everett. In Oakland, people could expect homes to go 20% over on a pretty regular basis. Now that the supply is a lot smaller, instead of 20% over, it's common to see houses go for 40% over asking or more. That's what happens when the beginning stages of hyperinflation start to appear in the economy. But once again this week, the Federal Reserve kept insisting that there was nothing to worry about. In fact, Boston Federal Reserve President Eric Rosengren, in an interview with MarketWatch on Wednesday, said that the factors pushing up inflation won't last. My view is that this acceleration in the rate of price increases is likely to prove temporary, Rosengren affirmed. But most economists disagree with this forecast. On that same day, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen explicitly affirmed interest rates will have to rise somewhat to make sure that our economy doesn't overheat. Now, an overheating economy means high levels of inflation. So what she meant was that rates must rise to prevent runaway inflation. However, hours later, she took back what she had said and affirmed that interest rates would not have to rise because, she said, I don't think there's gonna be an inflationary problem. But you don't need to be an expert to see that there's clearly something wrong with their declarations. You see, at this stage, we have to acknowledge that inflation is not some potential problem that may or may not arise in the coming months. Inflation is already here. And another proof of that lies in the fact that several companies have announced price increases to their consumers. Months ago, food giants such as General Mills were complaining about a higher inflationary environment and input cost pressures in face of rising commodity prices. And now Hershey's, Clorox, Shake Shack, Kimberly-Clark, Whirlpool, Hormel, Coca-Cola, among the many companies that have announced price increases. A recent survey released by Bank of America Global Research revealed that the number of mentions of inflation on corporate earnings calls has increased 800% compared to last year. We can definitely say that this is a major concern for the largest companies in the world. Investors are alarmed and consumers can see it. But as Simon Black has explained in a recent piece for Sovereign Man, the federal government is planning to spend a whopping $11 trillion this year. And as long as the Federal Reserve is printing money and holding rates down to historic lows, these prices will likely keep rising. The spending plan that was supposed to help the population to make it through the worst economic recession in decades has ended up deteriorating people's purchasing power to the point of snatching up half of the income of millions of U.S. households so that they can buy food. Our leaders have let inflation run out of control so they can continue to print, to borrow, and to spend money recklessly without considering how this is affecting our living standards. As the cost of everything continues to climb, soon we will see a major national crisis emerging because it won't take long for people to start to loudly complain about how nightmarish inflation has become and how the American dream has been ruthlessly taken away from our hands. If you have enjoyed this video, you will probably enjoy Michael Snyder's latest book. It's called Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, and it's now available on Amazon. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And don't forget to turn on the bell to always get our latest notifications. From all of us, thank you very much for watching.